What's going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of the House Podcast. If you don't know me by now, you will by the end of this episode. My name is Josh Handler, one of the founders of the Zimmerman Team over at Exit Realty Premier in Massapequa. And if you're looking to buy or sell your home, you need to call me right now, 516-732-6398. This market is absolutely insane right now. You see it everywhere, social media, the news. So if you have any real estate related topics that you want answered, feel free to give me a call. Would love to help you out any way possible. With that being said, we have an amazing guest on today. In my opinion, he is an educational master and has an abundance of real estate knowledge. He is a social media guru, in my opinion. He runs Hot Rides in Real Estate, which any realtor should be watching. If you don't watch it, tune in and watch every episode before season 2 comes out. He is the founder and CEO of the TILRE Success Solutions. And here we go, JB Bolvadin.
Man, thanks for having me, Josh. Glad to be a part of it.
Hey, JB, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, we'll jump right into it for people that don't know you. Give us a quick 5 minutes, what you do, what, brought out the TILRE Success Solutions in the beginning, a little background about yourself of what got you into, doing the big training sessions and everything like that.
Sure. It's funny. I got into the real estate business how most people got into it, which is by accident. It wasn't necessarily the first thing. That most people don't grow up wanting to be a real estate agent. I don't know why. It's a great career. But long story short is I worked at a marketing company when I was 18 going to college. And through that time, I was building up and working my way up through that system. And they told me, well, hey, once you get your degree, we're going to bring you over to corporate. And you can start as an area manager. And I was like, great, this is awesome. So one day they have a call, and it's a conference call that they want to have on a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And I see that they CC'd New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, the whole region's all market, to let them know that they lost their major contract with one of their clients and they can't afford to keep us all. So we're all laid off.
Great call.
Yeah. It was a great call. In fact, there was one guy that got to the call late. So he jumped on late. So he's like, hey, what just happened? So I had to get fired twice that night. They had to repeat themselves. So you could imagine, as a young guy with thinking you have it all figured out, when you hear that news, it's just not just you lose a job, like you lose your future at that moment. So I went and I said, you know what? Real estate was always interesting to me. By the way, this is around 2008.
Okay, so right when the market was crashing or crashed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said, let me get into real estate. So I go to a real estate office and I interview. By the way, I didn't know that real estate was commission only. I didn't know that there was no salary. I didn't know anything. So I went there and they're like, hey, you're hired. And I'm like, great. They're like, give me your credit card. I'm like, for what? It's like, hey, we're going to sign you up to take this test and be a real estate agent. So, when I got into that business, I wasn't too familiar. I didn't realize that there wasn't really any training in it. And, they said, here, just got to make cold calls. So I remember my first cold call. I make the call and I'm thinking, I'm going to tell this guy I'm a real estate agent and I'm interested in selling his house. He's going to be like, oh, that's great. And he's going to ask me to come over or something and we can just get it going. My first cold call in the business, he's like, don't you ever effing call me again. He's like smashing the phone and it's not hanging up. So I'm hearing like the bang, 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 because he can't actually get the receiver to connect. So I'm like, dude, this is rough. So the first few years, I really, they say trial by fire or baptism by fire. I started to really get the experiences, which is what most people today get as newbies.
Right.
Fast forward a couple of years, I started to build out my business and I started to do well. And I started to be making a good living for myself. By the time I'm like 22 years old, I'm making about 22, 23, probably start hitting the low 6-figure mark.
Okay.
Which, at that part, I thought it was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. So the broker I'm with, it was a very small boutique firm at the time. And she said, hey, look, why don't you start like recruiting people, training people? And I said, you know what, I can do this. I can grow this company. So I started recruiting a lot of people and building this kind of like this group, this empire type of thing where I said, I'm going to build it up and I'm going to train everyone. And I was kind of voluntold into the position per se of like training at the time.
Gotcha.
So at that moment, I realized that, we started to grow. We added about 30 agents within 60 days. And I was training all of them.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was going really well. And half of them were newly licensed, which I really enjoyed because they don't bring the bad habits from a previous brokerage with them.
Right. Yeah, you got to train them how you kind of get to structure them the way you want them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So no experience is not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Right.
So what started to happen is that the broker at the time reversed a lot of the policies and wanted to change things to go back the way it was. So we started to lose a lot of agents.
Okay.
Long story short, it went down to 5 agents. They came to me and said, "JB, we love you. If you go, we're going to go with you. If you stay, we're going to leave because we can't stay here anymore." So I moved on to bigger things. Then I went to a larger company, and I kind of found myself again training. They asked me, "Hey, can you teach a class?" And everyone really liked the class. Then they asked me to take on this training program. They had 500 agents, and for 10 years they tried to put together a coaching program. It would always disintegrate month one. I put my program together there, and it was responsible for 20% of the entire revenue of the company. And to this day, it still exists, even after I've left it now.
Wow.
So that's when I realized at that moment, it was great to do it for that company, but I wanted to do it for everybody. And when I designed TILRE Success Solutions, and TILRE, stands for the industry leaders in real estate, I wanted to build a place where someone could walk in and get everything they needed to get to the next level. And I wanted something where people felt like they belonged, where there's a following, there's energy, not just training.
Right.
So when I built it out, it was on a whim. I was at a conference. I was talking to some friends, and I came up with this idea on February 3rd, 2019. And February 20th, I secured the building.
No time wasted.
Yeah. At the time, also, I only had enough money to pay for 3 months of rent. When I secured the building, I still had to build it out, still had to hire employees, do all this other stuff. But I knew, it's a very close mentor of mine said something to me. And he said, "Look, you're never going to meet the people that you want to meet till you build something worth them coming to."
I like that.
Yeah. And at that moment, even though I signed that lease, that long-term lease, and I only had enough money to pay for 3 months, I said to myself on that drive home after signing that is, you can't afford not to do this. And since then, I can say, in less than 2 years, about 18 months, we became the largest training company in the real estate industry on the East Coast.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And now our clientele consists of startups to very established brokerages to ultra luxury people doing $20 million plus. We've been able to implement a lot of this training into a lot of fields successfully, and it started to create a real following. And then we got into the media production, which is probably maybe how you and I connected, or how maybe I caught your eye.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that you mentioned just now was, I feel a lot of brokerages are almost broken. You're offering almost everything in-house. Like you said, you want people to come in, have upbeat energy, and have everything ready to go for them, whether it be media or green screens or training, something different than the day-to-day brokerage. A lot of brokerages, in my opinion, they're all dying because they're not offering anything to their agents that make them want to stay there to pay these fees.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think the biggest problem with brokerages is they got used to not investing any money and making some money off the top, and it's not working anymore because people want value, and that's one of the biggest things that we get called in for with brokerages is that there's 2 types of clients that reach out to us: either a company that's doing well, that wants to establish more dominance in the marketplace, or a company that realizes that if they keep this up, they may not be in business in next year. So they want to re-implement a lot of things. And I think a lot of brokerages now, you're seeing a 50-50 split where half of them are realizing, hey, I got to do a lot more for my agents if I want a company. And the other ones think that, no, it's just fine. And every year you see their agent count go down, their market cap go down, their volume go down. So yeah, we're seeing that a lot, unfortunately. And for the ones that are waking up to it, they're going to do extremely well. And the ones who don't, they're in for a rude awakening.
I 100% agree. And, leading into this now, where the brokerage model seems to be kind of broken, or no one's really changing with the times per se. For new agents that are first raw agents, just past the test, they're looking to get into the business, what's the number one thing that, you're telling these agents if they come to you and be like, JB, what should I be looking for? What do you recommend I do?
That's a really good question. And I don't get asked that enough. So, kudos to you. That was solid, because a lot of people do want to know that. The thing is that when you're looking for a brokerage, I would recommend this. First thing you want to do is take a step back from the name and start looking at how you're going to build yourself up. This doesn't mean that there's not big name brokerages out there, but if you're a big name, just remember this. If the name was enough, that means that everyone working at that particular brokerage would be doing really well, and that's just not the case. So I'd pull out of name recognition. I would go more into people. When you go to a brokerage, obviously you want to figure out like what are your fees for, what are the splits, but more importantly, what I would look for is the energy. When you walk into a place, do you feel fired up? Is there people that actually work there that you want to be like? And if they exist, do you even have access to them to begin with? How's the training structure? What do they do for marketing? Will you develop into a better person? And these are the things that you should lead with. Don't lead with, oh, it's this name, and I think everyone will know the name and like the name. It's not going to work. What's going to work is that you're around people that every single day you wake up and be like, I got to get better. And these people drive me. So if you can look for a broker that doesn't push you, but look for a broker that pulls you to come in every single day to go do to the next thing, that's going to be the right team for you. And that could be a big name. That could be a team. That could be a small mom and pop. You really got to get there and talk to them and determine, like, you know, when you walk in, if you feel confused, if you don't feel good, you probably don't need to spend the next year there ruining your first year in the business, you know.
Right.
You know, so like, go with your gut. If you don't feel good, don't expect to feel good later. Like, you got to feel good doing the deal from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you'll know better than me because you have all these numbers in your head 24/7, but I think the numbers like 85, 90 or like 95% failure rate in the first year. And do you think a majority of that is because they choose the wrong broker off the bat?
No, I don't think it's because it's the wrong broker, because at the end of the day, no matter where you go, you're an independent contractor. I think the number one reason is that when you go to a job, even if it's a job that you hate, you know exactly how long you're working that job. You know when you're getting paid. You could just show up and do nothing. You still get paid on Friday. And in our business, when you first get into, especially, not only do you have to work very hard in exchange for nothing, it actually costs you money.
Right.
So, and you don't understand the day-to-day activities or the other things. So I think not being properly hatted on the business is why there's such a high rate of failure. Because if you look, the failure rate in real estate agents is very, very similar, almost identical to small business in general. Because it's one thing to work for a business versus running a business. And I think that's the lack of education that people get. They don't learn how to become salespeople. And even the good salespeople don't learn how to become business people. And that's why we see such a high rate of failure, very similar to small business.
Yeah, I feel a lot of agents that get into the business that are newer, even people that have been in it for years, when you are looking to get into real estate and you don't have a showing that day and you don't have a client set up, they think, all right, well, I don't have anything to do today. I guess I have a day off. What are you doing to be proactive to get your next deal? Is
100%.
a lot of,
Yeah, I agree with you totally.
And I got somebody knocking at my door, which is why you hear my dogs outside.
All good.
So for agents that are in the business, maybe they're doing 2-3 deals a year, right? What is the number one thing that you think these agents should be doing to try to get to that 10, deal a year? If they have minimal money to put to marketing, very raw still, but they have a couple deals under their belt, but they're looking to kind of just get over that hump.
So the thing is, I think it's an agent that does 2 or 3 deals a year just needs to be honest about where it's coming from, which is they're not looking for the deal. It's their sister wants to buy a house, their neighbor, their friend. It's probably a referral source. It's a layup. And I'm not minimizing or invalidating their success or what they've gotten from that. But I think someone who wants to grow if you're trying to grow a 3 deal a year business, you have to think the same way as a 0 deal a year business, because those 3 deals were by accident anyway. Like I said that with respect, not to invalidate people's sales, but you just got to be real. There's no processes put in. So step number 1 is you're going to have to get good at sales. And to get good at sales, you don't have to be good at persuading people. You have to be convinced yourself.
Right.
So it's the activities that are more important than anything. So what I would tell that person is that, okay, what'd you do to get those deals? And you want to triple down on that. But more importantly, you got to have some routines put in place. So cold calling, when people say cold calling is dead, it's not dead. It's not as powerful it's not as powerful as it was in the 80s, but that doesn't mean there's still not a lot of opportunity in it. So cold calling is very much alive. Door knocking or even just distributing handwritten letters to neighborhoods is still very much alive, and that doesn't cost any money. And by the way, when you go out there, people start recognizing you and you kind of become the mayor of that town. So these activities are the things that they're going to need. And I think the biggest problem with the 2 or 3 deal agents a year is they're looking for sauce. They think that there's no way it can be that simple to start making money. There has to be something more to it. look, even if I gave you the sauce, you got to put it in something to make it taste good, right? You don't just drink sauce straight up. You put it on some type of meal.
Right.
So the thing is that like for the sauce to work, you got to be able to cook to begin with. And I think that's the biggest problem. So general activities for lead generation is the number one step to getting started. And if someone said, I don't have any money, I would say, no problem. Post on your social media because that doesn't cost money. 2, make some cold calls. 3, start going to doors regularly. And 4, go to networking, but don't go to real estate networking events, which is the biggest mistake. Because in real estate networking events, you got a bunch of lines and no zebras. If you're a car enthusiast, go to car shows and meet people based off of that interest, and then convert that to a professional relationship. You know, if you're a fishing guy, go to fishing events. Music, if you like art, go to arts. But you want to go to events where people are getting together that's not real estate related. So when you meet someone, you're more unique and they're more likely to convert. Because at real estate networking events, I'm not totally discouraging them, but let's be honest, most people that are getting business from networking is not from going to real estate networking events on the regular.
Yeah, I mean, you're surrounded by every other realtor, so
exactly.
Yeah,
everybody just wants a deal,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, now flip it on the other way. If you're a realtor, like our team, for example, I think we did like 49 or 50 transactions last year, and we want to get to 100 this year as for a team. We grew a team. We basically added 5 or 6 agents. We now have 12, which is why we're coming to you for some outside training, just to really vamp and get everybody, just keep it's going to be pumped. I'm ready to, hit the ground running with the whole team, and they're amped and ready to go. So we want to get to 100 transactions plus this year is, my internal goal for myself and the team. So for somebody that has 50 transactions and they want to get to 100 or they want to do 75, what do you think is the best thing to do? I know a lot of people say sometimes you got to take a step back and put some systems in place to go forward. When do you really know when you really should be, doing that?
Well, you should always be scaling. And the thing about taking a step back to move forward, I agree with that, but it's got to be defined better. So there's a better understanding of what that even means. So to increase the discipline on the team or to increase structure on the team or have certain protocols is extremely important. But also you just want to figure out, like sometimes some people's routines are so bad that you want to bypass all routines and, and increase discipline that way. So the best way I would say to kind of scale out to the next level would be when you work with people. Look, let me rephrase it like this. Josh, what if I told you you can make double the money this year without spending 1 extra hour than you did last year? What would you tell me?
I'm in.
Awesome. So how would we go about doing that? We would have to cut the sales cycle in half. So if it takes you 4 months to land someone on a house or to get something under contract, if we could do that in 2, that means we can double up without adding 1 extra hour. Because I think everyone's trying to get big, but the biggest problem is they don't understand that speed is the new big, how fast we can move something. So what I've been working with a lot of teams, and here's a little, it's a little bit of a sneak peek on administrative end is I always tell a team leader, if you had to pay your team member $100 an hour to work with a lead, how much money would you invest in that lead before you tell a team member stop?
Right.
So the thing is the acquisition cost usually on teams that are, because when you hit 50 deals, to go to 100 with the same strategy is more difficult, but to change some things up, that usually requires better processes and working with leads, and also having stages of when you decide to let go of a lead versus continue to work with them. So
that, not to cut you off, but just because you said that, so one of my good buddies, one of my best friends, honestly, Steve, he's on our team. He actually was doing real estate. I think he's in his 5th or 6th month. He's done like 5 or 6 deals so far. He's doing great with the leads, and he ended up leaving his full-time job to go real estate full-time. He loved it so much. And he's working with a lead right now that we talk on a daily basis, and it's a similar situation. He gets an accepted offer. He has an inspection. He always finds something that makes him want to back out of it. He loses that deal. He goes back out, finds another one, wants to make these offers, and then wants to walk away again. And we've been talking. Eventually, it comes to the point where when do you cut your tie and say, listen, it's just not, it's not working out for us. We got to split our ways and go separate. The time and the money is eventually wasted.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. And what I would do it as is, like I said, it's the acquisition cost. So the thing is that what's the gross commit? If this person were to close on that house that he just backed out of, what would be the gross commission of that deal?
He's probably around, he's looking in like the 450, 475 range. So it's probably, $8,500, something of that nature.
Okay. And how long has he been working with them?
I would say at least a month at least. And, he's actively showing them every week, for the most part, a couple houses every week or 2-3 houses every time he goes out. And, he's gone on one inspection already. He has another one lined up, so he's actively working with this guy.
How many hours a week do you think he's working with the guy?
I would say, let alone he goes to 2 or 3 showings. He's with him for 3 hours, and he showed him probably 10 plus houses already.
Gotcha. So when you really look at it, plus calling to see if those houses are available.
Yeah, not even the waiting in line for the open houses now. And
right. So if you were paying your team member by an hour, is it safe to say that you already would have paid him for 20 hours of his time?
I would say he's definitely in for at least 20 hours.
Okay, so we're looking at it. So he's basically $2,000 in on $8,000 GCI, and we know, I won't talk about what your payment arrangements are with your team members live, but what I will say is that we know with a broker being involved and the team being involved, the gross commission is not the real deal, right? That thing is going to get chopped up. Then the IRS is going to get their cut. So we already know that 2,000 is taken off the top. Realistically speaking, this guy's reaching the end of his life cycle. So what you can do is what I would do to a client like this is the client appears to be loyal to this person, but also appears to constantly get offers accepted and then turn back, right? So, and turn back from it. So at what point, well, I would tell him as soon as it's not viable anymore. How many times has he done this?
I mean, he's probably done it 2 or 3 times, and, it comes to the point where enough, to me, it would have been enough is enough. Like I would have been done, because your time is worth more. But as a new agent, he goes, at what point do you say I'm in too deep? I'm just going to ride it out to the point where I'm going to get out while I still have a chance.
Well, people do that with their regular relationships too. Realtors always get stuck into this trap, which is, man, I want to be out. And then you're like, I've already come this far with them to back out now. And then you go another 2 months with them and you're like, damn, I should have backed out when I thought about it before, but now I'm in too deep. It's okay to let stuff go. So with him, I would have let him go already. And the way you can do that is to say, look, I've done my job. So, in order for us to work with you, we'd have to actually charge you a consulting fee of $3,000 to continue.
Now, do you think it would make sense to say, hey, listen, I can continue with you, but we're gonna have to sign a 3% buyer broker agreement, so I'm getting that extra 1 point?
Yeah, absolutely. But I would even figure out how we can even get stuff up front if necessary. Whether that be for consulting instead of transactional, to add that to your fee. Because the thing is that this is not going to work, because if he could be willing to pay you guys 12%, but if he never closes, what's the difference?
Right.
So the thing is that to me, it sounds like he's jammed up and he needs to get out of it, because is it possible he can close this guy? Sure. But at what cost and how long?
Right. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. So if you could use that time to be prospecting to get other clients that turn into 1, 2, or 3 deals in that same time frame, sometimes you got to, cut your nose to spite your face, they say.
Yeah, exactly. And I would have dropped him. And if I insisted on keeping him, I'd probably put myself in a position where, he'd be paying something, whether that be for consulting or whatever else it might be, just something in good faith that we can. It's not even about signing an agreement anymore. It's really about figuring out, is this guy worth keeping? Because those type of clients, usually when you start asking them for some type of commitment, is when they start really coming out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because there's something he's not telling. There's something he's not telling your team member.
Right. I was talking to him and he's like, yeah, he started naming everything that was bad, and I had to start naming everything that was good. And then he thanks me. Oh, thanks a lot. I didn't think of it that way. He just wants to pick everything that's bad. Almost he wants to lose it, or he wants to walk away after he gets accepted. It's like a game.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this when we get together with your team, but what we do is we do a pre-frame in the buyer consults. And basically we always tell the buyers about what's called the 80-10-10 rule. 80% of the home should be what they're looking for. 10% could be stuff that they can fix or renovate, and 10% they can live with. So that's a great way to preface it. And I can show you step by step on when you show a property, how to actually gauge them to make sure that they're reasonable and you're actually working with the right guy long before you get into this position. Because if I had a time machine where something went wrong was in the buyer consult, he's on fire and he's doing really well for just getting started. So the thing is that he's got a good thing going, which is confidence. The problem is with confidence is sometimes confidence can breed incompetence, because you're going into something and you stop taking into consideration everything else that can go wrong. And that's when things start to fall apart. When you get big enough, you need policy. And I think if there's a strong policy on how buyers are spoken to, how each showing goes down, how the, like, for example, I always tell buyers this: look, we have two options. I can only ask you 5 questions and show you 100 houses, or I can ask you 100 questions and we'll find your house within 5 houses.
Yeah, I guess that makes a
Which
lot of
one do you
sense.
want to do?
Yeah, I'd much rather ask 100 questions.
Yeah. So the thing is that once we get to that buyer consult, we could have found those buttons where he's at maybe ahead of time. But now that you're already in it, I would basically be working up an exit strategy, because that to me is very alarming, because it also hurts the morale of your people. You don't want to burn out a high producing guy. You want to
Right.
move on to the next one so we can keep that fire going.
Right. Yeah, because he was in sales prior, and obviously, if you're in sales and you're confident, like he can crush it. And I feel sometimes he's getting stuck on with the wrong buyer, and sometimes you just gotta, take your loss and move on.
Yeah. Sometimes the best deal is no deal.
Yeah, it's a learning experience, So,
100%.
To the beginning of the question where we were talking about when you have to scale back or not scale back, or how to, take your team to 50 to 100 or double your sales, what do you think are the main keys that an individual, if you're just doing it by yourself or if you're running a team, what are, 2 or 3 things that you would maybe recommend to try to get you over the hump from you're doing a consistent 50 to try to get to 75 or 100?
Yeah, first thing I would do is codify all your processes. What that means is that when you're dealing with either, whether it be a buyer or a seller, you have a codified process that you use. You ask the same questions, do the same things, and keep the same rules across the board. This will enable you to determine what's viable and what's not have to guess it. Because when you don't have a codified process, you're kind of winging each individual transaction or each individual client, and that will take up too much time because you're not on top of things. Second piece is organize. Everything that happens, every phone call you make should be documented in your CRM. There should be a very clean flow. You shouldn't allow backlogs to happen. So when your text messages come, you answer them immediately. You're on top of things. So that's another piece. And finally, you want to increase your aggressiveness, because are you asking for the sale enough? Are you working with the right clientele? Some people think cutting their clientele will cost them money. It'll probably double your money. You need to kind of clean house and work something out. Like, bottom line is this: whenever you're doing something, when you push really hard and it doesn't work the way you want, there's someone on the other side pushing back. So a lot of people think to do more, you got to add more. You can do more by, believe it or not, cutting.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. You don't think of it like that ever, really.
Yeah. So you got to cut people. I'm not telling you to start cutting people on your team. I'm telling you, like,
of course,
those people within that team. Sometimes you might have to, but I don't know. I don't know your situation, but I do know that definitely people within your team need to start cutting people they're working with. They also might need to cut some people they're around. Like, let's be honest, most people, friends and family, are costing them millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They're giving too much attention to the wrong things.
No, and I hear that more and more. Sometimes growing your team and having multiple players per se on your team doesn't necessarily mean you have a strong team. And sometimes that those people are really just extra baggage and kind of bring down everybody else, when sometimes you just got to cut the tie and let it go.
Yeah, exactly. So once you evaluate that, you can determine what your real abilities are, because there's stuff holding it down. Like, I'll give you an example. If one of your guys is just killing it, but he can't get past a certain point, but he's in like a terrible relationship outside of work, well, I can guarantee you, if that were to be a change, his or her progress will go up significantly, because it's the attention units. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, imagine we had a checkerboard, right? A graph. And in that graph is 100 grids. I'm trying to do it like the camera's the opposite. So when I go like this, so imagine there's like a graph and there's 100 grids inside this graph, right?
Right.
So, Josh, is there stuff in your life that you regret?
Always.
Right. Is there stuff in your life that if we went deep and talked about enough, you may get emotional?
Of course.
There might be stuff stressing you out right now. And why are we able to talk right now and you can keep your composure? Because there's something happening right now called attention units. You're using a certain amount of attention units to push that down so you can function. Now, each person only has a certain amount of attention units. So what starts to happen is that if we add up all the things you regret, the things that have been done to you, your present problems, out of 100 attention units, you might only have 5 available. So 95 might be you being used, which means that a flat tire can ruin your week.
Right.
Where for someone else, it won't even jam them up. So another thing they would have to really do, if we're talking about high performance, is clean everything up. Like in their personal life, with the decisions they may make. It's something that you have a private talk with your own team, but to go to high performance, everything matters. That's why, like, a boxer, when they're boxing, they eat like one cannoli And that can mean them like getting knocked out in a fight because they need to put out everything out there. They're super high performance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you got to start treating it. If they treat everyone like they're high performance athletes, they'll start acting like it too. But it's a combination of all those things that really, really make you become a machine.
Gotcha. Now, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think once a lot of agents start listening, newer agents, it's going to make sense to them. A lot of agents ask me, what should I really be doing to get started? Where can I be advertising? I always tell everybody, it's all about you're building a brand. You're on our team and we'll help you do whatever we can. But at the end of the day, you're branding yourself. You want people to buy you. It doesn't matter, what team name is on your business card. If it was Exit Realty, Douglas Elliman, Joe Schmo, it doesn't matter. You're building your brand. So what is the number 2, 3 things that you recommend when you're starting out to build your own personal brand?
Okay, so when you build your own brand, you want your message to be, you want to have a concise message of what you stand for. So it's like if you're a brand, what do you want people to think of you as?
Right.
The next step is that you also want to be able to disseminate. You almost got to think like if you're a brand, push it like it's a new religion. That's how many people are trying to get to follow it. So you're gonna have to be obsessed with putting yourself out there. So I'll give you an example. Really good friend of mine. We just finished the project together. He sends me these cookies here. The guy,
I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. So we got the sales giant here. We got Brian Karp. The guy's sending me cookies with his face on them.
I love it.
so even and the thing is, I'm not criticizing. I love it because I think the thing is that even when he's making a gesture that's unbusiness related to reach out, he has his brand there because he wants people to know him a certain way. And I think when you have that type of slogan, you're on top of stuff. People remember you that way. Like Muhammad Ali said, "I am the greatest." Well, statistically speaking, and I'm a huge Muhammad Ali fan, he's actually not the greatest.
Right, but everybody knows him as the greatest.
Right, because he called himself the greatest for 20 years before someone else would. So the thing is that when you start your brand, you have to realize out the gate that you're the only one that's going to believe in it, and you have to continue to believe in it until it grows bigger. So there's 4 parts that you have to look out for. So first thing you're going to do when you start building out your brand and posting on social media and getting out there is you're going to get attention. After you get attention, you're going to get criticized. You're going to get criticism.
Right.
Everyone's new idea is always a dumb one when it's new.
Of course.
Right? Now, after you get criticized, you're going to get hate. And after you get hate, you're going to get admiration. And it always happens in that order. So anyone building a brand, my biggest piece of takeaway would be is most people give up when they get criticized. They don't see it all the way through because they keep thinking everything has to be an overnight sensation. It takes years to build a brand, and it's worth every year. It's worth all the aggravation, sleepless nights, and confusion, whatever else you got to go through. So anyone building a brand, my biggest advice is be ruthless with it. Don't stop. And you have to believe in it with more energy than people don't believe in it for it to persevere. And you have to be willing to do that as a marathon. If you're willing to do that, people will know who you are and they will want to work with you. My company, when I first opened it up, TILRE Success Solutions, people didn't know who I was, so now they do. And the thing is, it took some time to really get there. And I can tell you that if we weren't ruthless with what we did in branding, you can't expect people to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So, brand is a belief. So it's like, how much do you really believe? How much are you really willing to fight for your beliefs? So my advice to someone is if you're going to really do this, make sure you're all in because it's going to be a marathon, but it'll definitely be worth it. 100%.
Yeah. And saying right there that it's a marathon, a lot of people in this business, in my opinion, they're always looking for the instant satisfaction. They want the first commission check, the second commission check to come rolling in, and they're not willing to put in the work and the time. They're just chasing the dollar in the beginning. They're not doing the right thing by their clients and showing them whatever's necessary. They're literally just in it for the money. And I tell them straight from the beginning, don't look at the money. Don't chase the money. The money will come as long as you're doing right by your clients and showing that you bring value to them. The money will follow with residual people coming back and giving you more and more referrals to where don't worry about the money. It'll come. Just trust it.
100%.
Exactly. Trust the process.
Yeah. If you don't worry about money, because you have a money problem, you have an attention problem. So go get attention. The money will follow. If you think about money, you'll never get there. So that's good advice you're giving people because it's true.
Yeah. Now, everyone's going to hear more about this, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but if anybody likes what they heard, if they think they could possibly learn something from you one-on-one, where can they find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? Let them know.
Sure. So best way to reach out to me is at JB Bolvadin. That's across any platform. You can find out about the trainings we have coming up. If you want a cool introduction on some stuff, no matter what level you're on, we actually have something called Conquering Real Estate, which the ads are going to go out for February 21st. It's going to be a live event, and we're going to do a whole day training with it, where you're really going to learn like the future of this business and how it really works and how to conquer it in 2021. But yeah, it's very easy to get a hold of me. So yeah, if you have any questions or you want to see what we're up to, what we're doing, yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help.
All right, guys, you heard it there. So JB Bolvadin, I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to everything that we're going to do one-on-one with our team and everything that you guys have going on with seeing Hot Rides in Real Estate Season 2. I'm hoping that's going to be coming out soon. We're excited for that. Thanks again for giving all your knowledge to everybody. And
my pleasure.
Thank
you,
Josh. I appreciate it. Again, guys, if you have any real estate related questions about buying, selling, or just in general about being a realtor, feel free to reach out to either one of us. Again, give me a call, 516-732-6398. Again, that's a wrap.